the actual red flag defending.
I think it's like
Is that really a foul on Kiwior? Really? People, deluded, I'm back again. At the time of making this video, it's 1:56 in the United Kingdom. I'm about to go watch the game for a second time. I had some thoughts and I thought I'd share them with you lot, probably all over the place. Now, what you in that clip you saw there, hopefully that doesn't get a strike on YouTube. Is that a foul? I think yes. I mean, his boots come off. If it hurts, it hurts. Even though Kiwior was sprinting a short while after that, as Gary Neville rightly so, hate to agree with the guy, but as he rightly so said, so it didn't hurt that much. If it hurts, it hurts, and whatnot. But is that really a foul? Now, we're not going to win the league. We've known that for a while. I've told you that for a while. Unfortunately, I've always said I want to be proven wrong, but we ain't going to win the league for that. If we just accept the Brighton game for one, what it is, and two, looking at building blocks for next season, I've been pushing this agenda. It's not even an agenda, it's a fact. Arsenal need to improve tenfold defensively. I am not blaming Kiwior in isolation for his performance. He's done quite well in the face of it to step in. Yes, he's a young man. The jury's still out. You've got the Brighton game now. Sporting Lisbon, you let yourself down. You've done great against Chelsea and Newcastle, the £20 million man. It's about building blocks. Now, as I've said, and I don't want to keep making the same points in all my vids, winning, losing and drawing comes with football. I definitely don't like to draw and I definitely hate to lose, but it comes with it. It comes with it. Credit to Brighton, sorry. They were amazing. They were solid. They were compact. They scored goals. They, 3 of them kept a clean sheet. Did all of this without making any breaking a sweat. Testament to them, damning on us because we didn't push them to their limit. We didn't push ourselves to the limit, which has been the case a few games, excluding Chelsea and Newcastle. Big us up for the Newcastle game. We didn't do that. Games like Brighton, Newcastle, where we did well, and any other top 6 game or teams in form, I am nervous as a fan to go into them, of course, but I like to watch my team in them because I think it's a good judge, because there's times, respectfully to the other teams in the league, you might get away with things. You can't against Brighton. You couldn't Brighton at home away, and it probably would have been a different game had we not have scored 4 goals and allowed them into it. It could have been a better game in a positive way today. Yesterday, technically, it obviously wasn't, people. I don't see players enjoying it. I don't see players testing themselves, pushing their limits, trying to win their individual battles today. And we're just poor, really and truly. And it got me thinking. Now, in relation to Kiwior, the man said, I felt contact. I lost my boot. I didn't even see the goal. I hope VAR would intervene and chalk the goal off, but unfortunately, the ref saw it differently. After we conceded the second, our heads dropped and we couldn't come back. Of course, our heads dropped. In the last few games where we've won, lost or drawn, exception to Chelsea and Newcastle, we've probably not been able to control our emotions. And people don't like to talk about it, but I believe the best things that make the difference in football are the things that are not sexy. The training ground, improving players, working on tactics, all of that stuff. People don't care about that. They just want new players. And mentally, football's way more of a mental game individually and collectively than people give it credit. When we're good, we're really good. You see certain players you think didn't have certain things in their locker. They've displayed that they have this season. Equally, when we're bad, we're terrible. It's contagious. When everything's going wrong, it typically gets worse. When things are going right, almost everything works. We need to build on this, this season. Mentally, we need to really take ourselves to town, really, because I do think the mentality's changed and all of that. But if you want to be title contenders, you need to want to succeed more than you want to live, really and truly. And if I use Kiwior as an example, you didn't really want to defend in that moment. You didn't say over my dead body. It's easier said than done, of course. And I'm not comparing Kiwior to these guys, but I'm sure Kiwior's watched the best defenders there's been in the world, and he wants to one day, in his own way, maybe be mentioned potentially in that. Naturally, the Puyols of this world, the Puyols, the Tony Adams, the Companies, the Van Dijks, any top defender, Vidic, Rio, JT, the list goes on, in it, and you lot have probably got some other names. They're not going to go for that. They're going to go and bollock the ref after that, but they're going to deal with that, really. We're in a defensive situation, we're under the cosh. And I think that sums up our defensive mentality, because if that was an attacker, if that's Jesus and he's got a little foul, you're going to keep going. We need to keep going. And I think it's a mentality thing. We need to crave clean sheets. We want to succeed more than when we want to be alive. We need to want to achieve things as much as the air that we have to all take in our lungs and things. And I'm not going to sit here and say my players don't want to do that, but there's a difference between being good and being great. And if we want to go to greatness and chase the illusion of perfection, that's where we need to go. Ultimately these players have failed at the final period, innit? But remember, it's for me anyways, it's a marathon, not a sprint. And at the last foot sort of hurdle, we've let ourselves down. It's like Usain Bolt. City are like Usain Bolt. You know, Usain Bolt didn't necessarily start races the best. It looked like athletes had a half a chance. But when he started getting into stride, he left people in the dust, which City are now doing. I think they're 4 points clear with a game in hand. They can win the league at Chelsea if things go their way. And I think it needs to be building blocks. I think the Brighton game summed up, we need to go to town defensively. You can bring in as many a player as you want, and we're going to get into that. You can bring in the best defender in their prime in this Arsenal team right now, and obviously they'll make a difference. But it's a team game. They won't look as good as they might have looked in the historical sides, the Maldinis, the Fabios, the John Terrys, the Rios, the Tony Adams, the Sol Campbells, whatever in it. Because we need to go to town. We've improved that outlook. There's a bit more of a want to defend, but it's not there yet. You know, we're one of the best attacking teams in the Prem. Nowhere near it defensively. I don't care what any statistic says. We're not. You know it. I know it. They know it. Simple as that. We need to be honest with ourselves. Until we can say that with Arsenal and put ourselves within that realm, we can forget about things. I'm sure you lot in your personal lives. I'm not going to sit here and say Ronaldo and Messi like training. I'm sure a bodybuilder don't always want to push weights and go gym all the time. But it's the unsexy, unglamorous part. Eat healthy. These are the things we need to do because it comes to light. If you defend like you did against Brighton in the Champions League next year, God help you. And it's not just that. Actually, I'm more angry in the games we've won. When you remove the emotions from the Villa game, from the United game, from the Brighton home and away games, if you look at Leeds, if you look at Crystal Palace at home, if you look at Fulham at home, if you look at West Ham at home, if you look at Spurs at home, if you look at Liverpool at home and away, the aspects of our defending hasn't quite been there. We need to be mentioned as one of the best defensive sides in this Prem. It starts from the front and our attackers and ends with Ramsdale. It doesn't matter if it's the transitions, following runners, set pieces, getting caught flat-footed, players playing people on side, managing games at periods. The game management of this football club must improve. 6 or 7 minutes into the second half, we've watching the game again, which I'm going to do. We threw it away in the second half. We weren't at the races in the first. Brighton were a better team. But at that point, it's 0-0. You have a fighting chance. We've conceded a few minutes into the half. We've let ourselves down at the very end, conceding 2 goals in the dying embers. These are things that need to improve. It's a 90-minute game, essentially. I do think for Arteta, there's a lot he can be proud of individually for what he's done and collectively. But I think for him to go to the next level, I'm not going to sit here and badmouth my manager. He's going to get some good tacticians and done his thing against them. But I just feel when it's a manager that kind of is known for tweaking things, De Zerbi, you saw with the Welbeck sub, we couldn't cope. Pep Guardiola, which I'm not going to get onto about when he moved Bernardo Silva from left back to midfield. The Southampton gaffer the other day as well. Yes, we made mistakes emotionally. We weren't there. Individual mistakes have to cut as well. But I think whenever there's them kind of managers there, I think he struggles. I don't quite agree with rotation for rotation's sake. I think Arsenal fans, every week, it's this player needs to play, that player needs to play, guy needs a rest, that guy needs to rest. Fans are true sometimes, and they're right. There has been times players have looked dead. But you can't ask for consistency if you're not playing a consistent lineup. Everybody can't get a game. If they want to do that, go do the Sunday League thing, really and truly. Arteta needs to learn to rotate, needs to balance his team out. Does he trust all of his team? I believe yes and no. I believe no, because some players will play week in, week out, even when things are going wrong, really. Does he trust them? Does he even trust Jesus and Odegaard? Because at pivotal moments, whether they've been big games or whatever moments, I think he's took them off and we've lost control. No coincidence. By the time them 2 have come off, we conceded 2 other goals. And I think I'm more onto you about the Liverpool game, really. We couldn't cope with Welbeck. I think our desire to defend has to improve. Saka will always play under me and under Arteta. I understand it. There's no other right winger. He's lit. He does his thing. I know he's been in a bit of a wobble at this moment in time. But these men are not Sane and Mane and them guys there at Liverpool. They're not. They're young players with scope to maybe one day be mentioned in the same realm, but they're not. Not a single player is the finished article, neither is the manager. So I think the manager has to learn when and where to trust his players, because he did make changes against Chelsea and Newcastle and it worked. And we could have probably played Partey, for example, and lost against Brighton. Partey's form's not been as good to some fans. Jorginho's been good. But I think it's them games, and you see it with Pep. Clearly, Pep's got a better squad. He knows when to tweak and when to change and be a bit cute and clever with things. And maybe in hindsight, we could have went with Partey, really, because we were very open on the transition. As much as Zinchenko's a great player and our build-up play, I'm sorry, but if your left back is not involved, then that means we can't, ultimately score goals. We're in trouble. We're in big, big trouble, Lack of build-up play with Zinchenko not there. And I love the guy. You cannot underestimate what he gives us. But come on now. Unacceptable, if I'm completely honest. So for Arteta, I think he needs to learn when to tweak things individually and collectively. I think sometimes we, obviously we've had a bit of a shaky period. We won against Chelsea and Newcastle. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I believe Arteta's stubbornness with the same lineup when he can is a direct correlation as to where we are in the table. But at times he needs to tweak it. It's without saying. And I personally feel, if I'm honest, when I see Smith Rowe for asterisks for this season, when I see Reece Nelson, even though he's done well, and excluding when Eddie got a run in the team, respectfully, when I see them man come on this season, especially when he's done it, Smith Rowe that ain't played, I know Arteta is running out of ideas, like everybody would, and he's now gambling really and truly. So maybe he just doesn't trust these players, and I'm not saying that's right, but is it wrong? If you don't trust, man, you don't trust, man. Maybe if he gets other players in, then things can change. Clearly, we need more physical midfielders. I don't really feel, I do think there was a lot of fouls and Brighton did that, but it weren't a game where they were just flexing their muscles. They were just kicking us like Newcastle. They were trying to play ball. They had the majority of the football. I don't care what a statistic says, especially that first half. They were the home team. As much as I like Brighton, we're moving like their Man City, really. And for me, when you're playing them kind of teams, there's a mentality thing. You want to show, you lot are good teams, come and show us. If both teams take each other to the maximum and the other team wins, what can you say? But we didn't do that. I did like the discipline literally in the first 10 minutes. I did like the press. I did like the ideas that we was coming with, but we needed to assert ourselves a bit more. Credit to Brighton if I haven't made that clear. Again, Arteta's a smart man. There's no way he believes there's going to be no injuries, but our approach this season, obviously, we found ourselves in a title race that wasn't probably predicted in August, so we have over-excelled, but at the same time, we've choked. We need, in my opinion, when it's crunch games like you've seen in the league, when it's crunch games in the Europa, whether it's the tactics, whether it's the manager, whether the players, ultimately we bottle it and crumble it. That needs to change for next year. Building blocks. There's a lot of negatives that need to be improved. There's a good foundation that's been built upon this season, and I think many rival fans, when they get beyond the bottling and the banter that has to come Arsenal's way, when they stop and they consider things and stop being dickheads, there's a good base there. But now to go to that next level, a lot of it is defending. I guarantee you, if you signed, who's the best centre back in the world right now? I don't even know people. Let's just say there's a prime Sergio Ramos on the market. If he went and played for Newcastle in defence and he played for us, he would look a lot better. I'm not saying he wouldn't look lit at Arsenal, but he would look a lot better at Newcastle. Why? Because them man understand defending. I don't really know Brighton stuff, but they never had Webster. Anytime I see Brighton, that Webster is always playing in defence. I know we didn't ask a single question like that in an offensive sense to Brighton, but why are they able to cope? Injuries happen. Unless you're the whole 20-man squad, 10 of the key players are injured, I don't have sympathy. It happens. And we need to be able to play in different ways, really and truly. I think the midfield, I didn't really see no build-up play. Odegaard's having to drop too deep. Saka the same. Benjamin White had a bit of a wobble. Trossard in the 10 and 8 ain't going to work against Brighton. We saw with Odegaard and Smith Rowe and Lokonga as a lone 6 in the midfield at the Emirates last year. It was a mad thing, really. So we didn't learn, if I'm completely honest. Ultimately, lack of rotation has killed us. It's naive to believe every player is going to be fit for 38 games and obviously whatever happens in the league. The first thing that went through my thought before I made this video is I wish we took the Europa League more serious. And what I mean by that is I think the players did. Ultimately, we lost on pens. But again, we didn't do what we needed to do in the first leg, really. We made certain changes that cost us. I think we needed to go strong defensively in that game, actually. And we didn't, if I'm honest. And for me, I refuse to accept that Saliba's injury is to why we can't defend. Evidently, we've lost our best centre back this season, arguably with Gabriel, one of our strongest centre backs. Of course, there's going to be a fall off, but it can't drop off a cliff. I said it in the last video for obvious reasons. Yeah, Jesus is up here. Jesus is here. Eddie's here, innit? Rob Holding is here. Saliba's here, innit? Now the golfing quality is closer with Eddie and Jesus to Holding and Saliba, or Kiwior, with the greatest respect, even though he's better than Holding. That's great. But our defending shouldn't fall off. Anytime there's a single system that's reliant on one player in modern football, whether that's in midfield, up front, or defense, you're in trouble. The goalie, cool. You're not going to have two great number one goalies. You lose your first choice keeper. I can hear that. But if we can't defend because Saliba isn't there, who's a 21-year-old, and a great one at that, but a 21-year-old, and he's not involved, and we can't defend, boy, it's a myth. And if we're honest with ourselves, even when Saliba's been there, I'm not knocking him, we have conceded a lot of goals. There's a correlation with Saliba not being fit. Obviously, ultimately, everyone's going to miss a key player. And if you're judging Arsenal on a top 4 team or a team that's finished back-to-back 8th and 5th, cool, this is great. Title contender, too many points dropped. Especially when you consider points drop potentially, if there are any, there's definitely 2 of those games from winning positions. And again, how many clean sheets are there without Saliba anyways? There's no way. There's other teams in this league, Newcastle, Brighton, actually on paper, United, even though I don't believe that. If they're missing key players, they might be a base level of defense. I only say United statistically because despite the Hayes nonsense, ain't he top for clean sheets? Crazy. If this is not this is a form of a team that's trying to win a league, no, it's a form of a team that's trying to obviously a team that's trying to get top four. This is okay in the grand scheme of things. This actually isn't the worst. There's 2 losses. A team that's fighting the league, myth. You can't do this against this City team where you near enough have to be perfect. You can't. And again, defending is killing us. There's mistakes happen. The Southampton game, we've conceded 3 goals. Yes, we've come back from behind. It's heroic. We come back from 2 goals down. But as a rule in football, a lot of you know, if you concede 3 goals, it's near enough impossible to win the game. Again, the aspects of defending was there in the dramatic game against Aston Villa and Bournemouth and Man United at home. 3 of the more whatever games. Liverpool, even the defending weren't really there. Spurs at home, so it weren't there. We conceded unnecessarily against Leeds, Chelsea, and Crystal Palace, and things like that. If I'm completely honest with you, again, Saliba's a big boy in this thing. He's a big boy. There's a correlation, but we can't sit here and act. How many clean sheets did we keep with him? We never really went on a run of clean sheets. Really, we grabbed one at the start of the season. 2 cheap goals against Leicester. Fair enough. We battered Bournemouth, probably one of the most completed performance. Then we went 3 games without one. Then we picked up one against Brentford, a great performance. Then we conceded unnecessary goals against Spurs and Liverpool. Then we're very fortunate to have kept a clean sheet at Leeds away. If we remember Bamford missing a penalty and that, not holding on to a lead. So again, whether it's game management, transitions, holding on to leads, conceding at pivotal moments, this all falls under the banner of defending people, not just tackling and things like that. But credit to Brighton, but the goals we conceded were terrible. This was probably our longest run, 3 games with a consecutive clean sheet. And then we went on a struggle. You're probably looking at, off the top of my head, 24, 25 goals, even with Saliba fit. So Saliba would have made a difference, but I don't want to say we don't respect defending because it's harsh, but we don't respect defending. As a club, we haven't respected defending. What defenders really come through our academy? I'm talking this season and historically, really and truly, the defenders that come through our academy, it's accidental things. Ashley Cole was a great accident. He weren't a striker out and out. Kieran Gibbs weren't a left back. He could play there, but he played in other roles. Maitland-Niles, if you want to force that, he never come through as a right back. What centre back's been risen up? Really? For all the talents at the club right now, we've got some good defensive prospects coming through. I'm not knocking it. But if you was to ask the casual Arsenal fan, young players coming through, you're going to say Patton, or you're going to say Balogun, you're going to say this, you're going to say that. You probably would say Brook Norton, Coffey, Waters, Sosa, as I said. But historically, I'm not here to big up Chelsea, but we don't do this thing where, Chelsea bring through the centre-backs, the centre-mids, everybody really. If you're more of a cute Cam A striker, you already are more likely to make it. So we need to go back home. And I think we have improved defensively from what we used to be. But if we're judging this on a new look Arsenal, on the levels we need to go, it's unfortunate. Every goal you concede is unneeded. And obviously, they can't be perfect. They're not aliens. This is football. Goals are going to be conceded mistakes are going to happen. But we need to eradicate that because it keeps happening too frequently. So it's either a pattern or a choice. A mistake made more than once is a choice. I also think defending and mentality. And I do think there's been a mentality shift. I do think we've improved. But in terms of being a team that wants trophies, there has to be that hunger. If this really was, it's not even last chance saloon because that's gone. But if this was really a thing where you needed to take 9 points and be reliant on other things, I didn't see a performance like that. I didn't see a team fighting to keep hold of that dream of winning a league, which not too many Premier League footballers in comparison to those who win a title and those who actively play across a season or seasons in the Prem can say they have. I didn't see that. I really didn't see that. So we can sit here and waffle about Saliba's injury, but I think it's lazy. It would have made a difference. It's lazy. Saliba could have been there, and I'm not knocking Saliba. He could have been there. We could have conceded all these goals, really and truly. So I think we need to go back to the building blocks, man. I think the greatest improvement we can make is evidently bringing in certain players in certain roles. But I would also say, on the training ground, we all need to assess this season. And I do think Arsenal fans have been, Arsenal fans cry about the players being emotional, very emotional. Some of these players that have done the job and delivered, you're criticizing them to the point where, I'm not talking about healthy criticism, to the point where you're doing too much, but according to the result, these players are the best things since sliced bread 1 week and not good enough the next week. It's terrible, really and truly, man. I can't accept, and you shouldn't accept, the fact that one centre-back being injured is why I'm not saying there can't be a drop-off, but it can't go from being here to down there. because you can't be that good of a defensive side. We're able to cope with attacking injuries and loss of form. Why can't we cope with it defensively? Evidently, a lot of that is correlated to the standard of player. You know, the standard of player, the options in the squad. Yes, there are injuries, but these things happen. We can't act like it's unique, people. I also feel there's been a bit of, I would say, unfortunately, natural normalcy, if that would be a good term, installed into us. And I'm not saying that's why we lost, but we were winning bare games. We were doing bare things that it was evidently unsustainable. When you remove emotion, it was unsustainable. And I think this is more like a positive, not even a positive, that's wrong because it's not, but like a somewhat correction of results, so that when you look back in May and you remove the emotions and you see the wins, lost and drawn, it's probably, what's the word, man? I know you lot can help me, man. Probably filled out a bit better, really and truly, you know, especially defensively. The wins have papered over a lot of cracks. We need to chase the illusion of perfection. We'll never get there, but we need to chase that. And I think, you know, the players have got to want to be great, and great is how you carry yourself, what you do. You're great might see you just be a steady Eddie in the Premier League, but you have to want to maximize what you want to do. And I do believe the players want to do that. But if I'm harsh as a fan, without just off what I see, I haven't seen that. And I don't think we're enjoying our football. You should enjoy this. If you really have overachieved, if everyone in the city is a powerhouse and all these things, you're already dead. So now, because you're dead, you might as well, this can be your freedom and your liberation, really. And I don't see us enjoying it. Pressure is a privilege. We haven't been in this scenario for a very long time, essentially, people. I'm not seeing players play with a smile on the face. You earned this. No one gave you this. You won your games. So enjoy it. And especially if City have run away with it, enjoy it. As I said at the start, accept it for what it is and fight Brighton, a great Brighton side, a team that's going to be in Europe. You need to be able to play these teams home and away and get results, which we have. But again, it's about the performance. And when we look back, clearly, this period we've been under has been what's cost us. But a season's a long time. It starts in August, it ends in May. A week is a long time in football. So 38 games, there's been different heroes, different villains every week. So that's just my thoughts, man. We got to go back to the building blocks defensively. And yes, if you bring in some depth and things like that, it's great. But it needs more than that. Like, there's several players, and I'm not criticizing anyone beyond healthy criticism, because mistakes happen, but several players have made mistakes. Several players have lost the ball in transitions. Several players are not following runners. Several players are switching off defensively from crosses and dead ball scenarios. Like, we should have woken up. That is it. And CEO, I can't pronounce his name, very talented guy at Brighton. He should have had a brace. He missed from 5 yards. He did well for us, really and truly. You know, we should have woken up from then. And what did we really create, really and truly? Like, the majority of our efforts did not hit the target, and they skimmed wide. Odegaard had a couple, Saka had a couple, Nelson off the bench had a couple. Pardon me. It's a building block. There's no point. You can't be good for 10 games. You need to be good for at least 35 or 38 if you're trying to fight City for a league. Can we honestly say that that was us? No, we can't. You know, we need to be mentioned as a great defensive side. We need to maximize ourselves defensively, even down to being street smart, knowing when to play and when not to play. As I said, mistakes happen, but it's happened far too often at this football club, and ultimately that has led to our demise. Ultimately, we've had the opportunity in our hands and we've let it slip, really. And I do think we'll improve next year like everyone else, but you don't know what the dynamics and the landscape is going to happen, is going to be the next year or next season. So we'll have to see in it, people. But yeah, man, this was a bit of a therapy session still. So yeah, on that note, let me know your thoughts, comment, like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll see you lot soon.
Because you always use that active defending.
I think it's like